All right, I'm here with Isabel for the Daily. We're going to talk about Bruno Fernandes, who gave an interview today saying his options are still open. He could potentially leave after 2024 and that the club and player need to be on the same side when thinking about a new contract. What are your thoughts on Bruno this season?
I mean, I don't think Bruno's been very consistent this season. I think he's one of the players that I am constantly kind of picking apart. And I think what the annoying thing is I think Bruno can play. We know how good of a player he can be. And I just don't think we've quite seen that this season. I think he's had a good couple of games recently, but overall, I just don't think his performances have been good enough.
Yeah, I mean, same with the whole team, basically. Really. It's hard to pick out a player who has been consistent, but yeah, he's one who seems to divide opinion. And then you look at the data and he's top of the metrics for United in all attacking stuff and across the league, basically. I was just looking across the top 5 leagues. He's in the 96th percentile for expected assists, and 97th for shot creating actions, 97th for passes attempted, 98th for progressive passes. He's even, for an attacking midfielder, in the 98th percentile for clearances, which is not exactly what we need from him. But so it's like his data's really good, but he doesn't pass the eye test this season, does he? It just seems like he's a bit off.
Yeah, I think so. It's just not quite seen that Bruno this season, I don't think.
Yeah, and so he's talking about, I mean, obviously it's a kind of pivot moment, isn't it? A big tournament, and he's 29 now, and he hasn't really won much with United, and there would be, I'm sure, massive demand for his services if he were to leave. And coming into the last 2 years of his contract, I guess it's going to be the speculation now, isn't it? Will he stay? Will he go? I'd be shocked if he leaves this summer. What do you think?
Honestly, I think of everyone, I don't think Bruno will leave. I think with his captaincy role as well, obviously, which could change depending on whether the manager stays or goes. I think it'd be silly for Bruno to leave now. I know Manchester United this season haven't been good enough, but I don't know where Bruno would go. I think at the minute he's got good place in this team. So, and I think he's got more to show for Manchester United. I don't want to see Bruno leave. But obviously, I mean, it just depends on the summer, I think, as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think he's been helped by the manager this season. I mean, he seems to get on well with Ten Hag, doesn't he? I don't sense there's any kind of tension between them, but he's played deeper than Scott McTominay at times. I just think that's absolutely mad. You have a player like Bruno who's like the best or in the top 2 or 3 at creating chances if he's in this kind of really forward position, because he can come up with those magic balls. And that's what he's all about. And you play him anywhere else, and it seems to unbalance the team. So I don't think he's been helped by Ten Hag. And I wish you'd just kind of pick a lane on that one, Ten Hag, and go, okay, we're going to build a team around Bruno. If you build a team around Bruno, it's going to be a particular style of team. It's not going to be a Manchester City style possession team.
No, I think that's the thing. I don't think Ten Hag is, using these players to their full potential at the minute. I don't think he's quite certain on where he wants these players. Like you said, you've got to build the team around some type of players, and I think Bruno is that, type of player. But obviously that just depends, going forward to the next season, whether Ten Hag stays or goes. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a difficult one with Bruno.
Yeah, and you don't know with the. I mean, I suspect there's going to be a change of manager just because you look at what the Ineos team are doing. They've changed absolutely everybody. So it would be shocking if the manager's not actually changed as well. And then you look back to Ralph Rangnick era, and the first thing he did was drop Bruno and then put him on the left. Okay. It clearly had this idea of a completely different tactical system, and he didn't want to play with his 10. And so there is a risk there, isn't there? If a new man comes in that they go, no, we're playing a different system.
Definitely. I think, I mean, we'll see who we sign in the summer and see who, if the next manager does come in, where Bruno will fit in if he does stay. Obviously, I know some people like to play Bruno on the right as well. So you can play Bruno in different positions, but I think he needs to be, that attacking midfielder, because he can up for us a lot. We see it for Portugal as well. He's really good for Portugal all the time. He offers these assists, and he can go forward, and he can, slot into that right winger position, and it does work sometimes. But I just think this season we've just not quite seen that side of Bruno. Yeah.
What was the goal he scored? It was an assist he made for Portugal where he hit it with the outside of his foot from the right-hand side. I guess Liechtenstein or someone like crappy like that,
Yeah.
I think. But it's an outrageous assist. This kind of thing you can do is that, yeah. I mean, he's still like a magician on the ball, and his work rate is as hard as anyone's. I mean, what do you make of all the moaning? Because I know I was chatting to Paul on what's that? Oh, yeah, former host Paul, and he was like, I really can't stand the moaning, which surprised me. I didn't think I'd hear that from him. I didn't think he'd care really, but it seems to really grate some
Yeah,
people.
I think, to be honest, it is something that I do pick up from Bruno a lot. I think with him being the captain as well, you kind of, he has this responsibility, and it's difficult because I think before he was captain, when Bruno was moaning, you just say, "Oh, shut up, Bruno." But I think now because he is the captain, he is allowed to do that. But I mean, people as well say, every other team will say how annoying, Bruno Fernandes to play against is. Um, I just think Bruno is that type of player. But I think the problem with Bruno, you said about his work rate. I do think, he's got excellent work rate. The problem for me is I just think the passing accuracy, that's the one thing that I've really picked up on this season from Bruno is the passing. He does some great stuff, but a lot of the time he is giving the ball away. I don't know. Do you think that as well? It just gives the ball away a lot.
Yeah, I mean, he always has. It came out in the scouting reports before he joined United. That was the risk, and one of the reasons why United are a bit reticent, apparently. So again, data. Pass completion rate, 72.4%, 31st percentile for attacking midfielders. So, I mean, he's always been like that. He takes on the risky ball constantly. And it's part of the reason why he gets so many assists or creates so many chances. Not so many assists this season. I think partly that's because we've got some players who are not finishing either. Yeah, I do wonder, like, if you stuck Bruno in the Manchester City side, would he look more like Kevin De Bruyne, creating more chances but being just more functional? Or would he stand out in that one as well as being a bit
It's
odd?
a difficult one. That I think the fact that everyone is so inconsistent at Manchester United, all the players around him, they're not. I mean, yes, we've had a couple good performances, I think, but overall, the players around him just aren't cutting it right now. So that does, I guess, make Bruno look worse in a way. I think Bruno, I mean, Kevin De Bruyne is he's another level. I think Bruno can be on that level as well. But right now with this team, I can't see it working. But if you slot him into, Manchester City's team, it might, he might look like Kevin De Bruyne. It's a difficult one, I think, that definitely.
Yeah. I kind of wondered I think part of it's United playing this kind of very vertical football this season, just getting it forward very quickly and obviously fast transitions and conceding a lot of chances as everyone has noted. I just wonder whether like slightly different composition in the midfield might help as well. I mean, obviously Mainy's come in, he provides a lot of control. If we had a physical defensive presence, just a bit of security, then that risk taking that Bruno does do becomes less sort of risky, if that makes sense. So if we had a Rodri, for example, or something like that, a physical defensive midfielder, and not Casemiro on his last legs, that might change things up.
Definitely. I think that's the thing. He's got to be supported by the players around him. And I think that's why a lot of us wanted Declan Rice to come in, because he was going to offer us that, big kind of strong CDM kind of player. I do think that's one of the big, places on the pitch where we're struggling at the minute is the midfield. I think we need, I think a lot of our players are a bit weak. I mean, you see Eriksen can do some great stuff. I think Eriksen's probably finished at Manchester United now. But even last season, I thought Eriksen was really good, but he's just not strong enough. And obviously with Mainu coming in, playing every match, he's performing great, but he's still a younger player and he's still probably got a lot to learn. And I do think we need that kind of, knowledgeable experience, strength, midfield to slot in with Bruno and Mainu probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I had the talk of the Devil's DNA account on Twitter. I did a really great breakdown of players he thought could come into that position. So I know it's worth looking at some of those threads, I think, just from a data point of view, tactical point of view on some of the options there. But seems to me that would be a real key for the summer. And I don't want to go back to the kind of Paul Pogba debate about unlocking Paul Pogba, but I do think having that kind of security blanket allows Bruno to be Bruno.
Yeah, definitely.
Basically. And I never, the moaning has never bothered me. I mean, probably if he was a Liverpool player, I'd hate it. But the moaning would fit in well with Manchester City. Tactical fouling and moaning and complaining. I mean, it seems perfect for them. But, I've always thought he's a bit of a twat, but he's our twat. So it's kind of yeah. So I mean, I hope he stays. I think he's got a lot to offer. He's never really been kind of a physical. It's not been about pace and physicality with him. So, like another 3 years at the club seems fine. But again, it's really going to depend on who comes in as manager and what that looks like and what kind of midfield and style they want to play.
Definitely. I think Bruno's a clever player as well. He's quite smart. I know he does I know I said about passing accuracy isn't great, but he can do some great stuff. And like I mentioned earlier, but yeah, it is going to depend on, who comes in. But I don't think I want to see Bruno going anywhere just yet. I think he's got, like you said, a couple more years in him. We'll see who comes in around, the midfield as well. And hopefully Bruno can slot into that as well.
Yeah, so he gave this interview to Portuguese TV. I'm not thinking about other things at the moment. Obviously, it doesn't just depend on me, does it? A player always wants to be here, but at the same time, you want him to stay. At the moment, I feel there's that on both sides. So there you go. The Daily Mail managed to make a whole article about that, and we've managed to make a mini podcast about it as well. There's not much to it, but it does. The discussion's wider than that, and I kind of sense the sentiment amongst United fans is it's more negative about Bruno than it has ever been. Probably, I mean, I'm sure, there's 75% support, and inside Old Trafford, it'll always be 100%. People don't get on the players' backs very often at OT. But it's kind of interesting, just the fact that we're having this conversation indicates that things haven't quite gone right for him this season.
Definitely. I think that what has gone right in Manchester United this season, I mean, not a lot. So I think people picking apart Bruno, do you know what it is? I think because he's become the captain this season, I think people are I do think people are picking more on him. I do think it's the captaincy. People questioning his captaincy as well, which I never quite understood about the question of the captaincy, because, you needed someone who was going to be on the pitch, obviously, at the start of the season. The plan wasn't for Maguire to play every game, so obviously that's probably why, he switched the captaincy to Bruno. I think Bruno was probably a good option, and I think he's been all right. Obviously, it can be a big change for some players, but I think Bruno's done all right this season. I think we've not seen the kind of Bruno that we should have, but overall, I think Bruno's been one of the, I guess, consistent players out of everyone else. Maybe it's a difficult one, Bruno. I think there is lots of mixed opinions, but yeah.
The captaincy thing's odd because I always think more's made of that than really matters. I mean, you want a lot of leaders in a team, don't you? And of any nature, whether in business or but especially sport, I feel like we have not enough. We have a lot of weak players who kind of wilt when the going's tough. Bruno doesn't. He reverts to the moaning, and which isn't always a good look, obviously. But I just wonder whether too much is made of the captaincy. Doesn't seem to have affected Harry Maguire. I mean, I think it's kind of humiliating for Harry to have it stripped from him like that. But his performances have been all right this season. I mean, in a team that's conceded 50-something goals in the league.
It is what it is this season. I think it's like we're coming to the end of it now.
Yeah. I can't wait for it to end, honestly, and just think about something else. Yeah. All right, that's it for the daily. I'll be back with Dan tomorrow. We're going to talk about some of the exec changes at Manchester United. Thanks for watching. Tell all your friends and your enemies. And what's your channel as well?
Talk about United.
Talk about United, and that's what we like to do. All right, thanks a lot. Bye now.